Hi students, today for our read aloud I would like to share with you this book about Malcolm X. Malcolm X is a civil rights leader. Maybe you've heard a lot about him, maybe just a little bit. But if you've heard, I know you've heard about Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement. Well, Malcolm X was a part of that. Okay? So maybe you've seen some images recently in the news about people protesting, going to marches. Maybe you've even heard it in your community. So right now, people are upset because they are not seeing tolerance in the news. Tolerance is accepting others' ideas and points of views, and people are not seeing others being treated with equality. So that's making them very upset. So Malcolm X is somebody in history who spoke out about instances like this in the past. And as you know, it's good to remember history so that we can learn from the past and make good choices for the future. Okay? So today, listen along as we hear a story about Malcolm X. Malcolm X. Here's our table of contents. We're going to learn about why he's a civil rights crusader, his early life, school years. Prison brings change. I wonder what we're going to learn about that. Working for the NOI, changing ideas, more changes, more troubles. The end comes too soon. Malcolm's work lives on. Malcolm X. We're gonna hear words like civil rights, the freedom or freedoms granted to U.S. citizens by laws. Will you read that to me? Civil rights. Ready, read. The freedoms granted to U.S. citizens by law. So if you hear somebody saying, those are my civil rights, those are freedoms that are granted by law. So if somebody is infringing upon your civil rights or getting in the way of those civil rights, those are freedoms given by law. And you're also going to hear the word tolerance. Will you read that to me? Tolerance. Accepting others' ideas or points of view. Early life with Malcolm X. Malcolm X began life as Malcolm Little. He was born in Nebraska on May 19, 1925. He had 7 brothers and sisters. His father, Earl, was a minister. His mother, Louise, took care of the family. When Malcolm was about 4, the family moved to Michigan. Earl Little talked about Black pride. He believed blacks would never be treated fairly in the United States. Earl said they could only receive justice by living somewhere else. These ideas angered many people. When Malcolm was just 6 years old, his father died. His family believed that Earl's enemies had killed him. School years. After Earl's death, Louise became ill and wasn't able to care for her children. She had to live in a hospital. The children went to live with family members or in foster homes. Foster homes are homes where some people can live if their parents are able to take care of them. They can live with other people, called a foster home. Malcolm lived with a foster family for many years. Malcolm did well in school. When he was in 8th grade, he told one of his teachers he wanted to become a lawyer. The teacher told Malcolm that he couldn't. Can you believe that? It happened. Malcolm became angry. He soon dropped out of school. Even as a boy, Malcolm believed he would do something important with his life. He was elected class president when he was a student in middle school. Prison brings change. As a teenager, Malcolm worked in Boston, Massachusetts, then in New York City. When he moved back to Boston, Malcolm began stealing and selling things that he shouldn't. In 1946, he went to prison. When Malcolm was in prison, his brother told him about the Nation of Islam and its leader, Elijah Muhammad. Followers were Muslims. They were called Black Muslims. They believed that systems in America kept Blacks in an unequal system and that they needed to join together. Malcolm joined this organization to fight for change. He changed his last name to X in 1952 when he got out of prison. Working for the NOI. Malcolm traveled around the country, sharing the NOI's message. He tried to get others to become Black Muslims. Although many people thought the NOI's ideals were hateful, other Black people agreed with the ideas. Malcolm soon became more popular than other leaders in the NOI. Malcolm discovered that Elijah Muhammad had broken some of the NOI's rules, and Malcolm lost trust in his leader. Elijah tried to stop Malcolm from telling others about his wrongdoing. However, Malcolm would not be quiet. This is him speaking to a crowd in Washington, D.C. in 1962. Let freedom ring. Malcolm gave speeches from 1952 to 1963. He was such a wonderful speaker that the NOI membership grew to 500, from 500 to 30,000 during his time. So students, maybe you're making a connection right now. We know that Martin Luther King Jr. was a minister for the Christian faith, and now we're learning that Malcolm X was speaking on behalf of people of Islam, of Muslims. Do you have to follow these faiths to agree with the ideals? No. But some people do. Changing ideas. In 1964, Malcolm left the NOI and formed the Muslim Mosque, Incorporated. This group worked with other civil rights groups. Malcolm's life changed when he visited the Muslim holy city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Malcolm said that he met blonde-haired, blue-eyed men that he would call his brothers. He realized he'd been wrong to think that all white people were evil. Malcolm stopped blaming them for the problems in the communities, and instead he talked about tolerance and working together. He changed his name to El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. There's that word tolerance. Tolerance, accepting others' ideas or points of view. Now, if you have tolerance, you can accept their ideas. Do you need to have the same opinions? No, but if you're tolerant, you're accepting, you're listening to the conversations. Malcolm holds 2 of his daughters in 1963. Let freedom ring. Malcolm married Betty Sanders in 1958. They had 6 daughters. 6! Betty and the children changed their last name to Shabazz when Malcolm did. More changes, more troubles. In 1965, Malcolm started the Organization of Afro-American Unity. He wanted the whole world to know about the civil rights problems that Black people had in the United States. Malcolm also began speaking about how to improve life for other minority groups. Malcolm disagreed with Elijah and the NOI even more now. He was warned that members of the NOI wanted to kill him. In February 1965, Malcolm's home was set on fire. Malcolm and his family escaped, but the danger wasn't over. Are you making another connection to civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr., who also had daughters whose home was also bombed and set on fire? So these people who are attacking these leaders, do they have tolerance? No. People who are attacking these people are afraid. They're afraid of change. We can't be afraid. We have to do what's right. The end comes too soon. On February 21st, 1965, people filled the Auburn Ballroom in New York City. Everyone waited to hear Malcolm's words, but those words never came. Instead, the people heard gunshots, and Malcolm's life was taken. Malcolm's wife and their 4 daughters came together months after. More than 1,500 people went to his funeral in Harlem. It was also shown on TV. Usually, the photo of Malcolm was taken in 1965. But Malcolm's work lives on. Today, many people know about the life and message of Malcolm X. The autobiography of Malcolm X was published in 1965. Malcolm had been working on the book with writer up until he passed. In 1992, Spike Lee, a famous movie director, made a movie called Malcolm X based on this book. There are also plans to build a Malcolm X museum in Harlem. There, visitors will be able to see photos of Malcolm X and some of his original papers. So students, today, if you're seeing on the news some people protesting and maybe you even hear it in your neighborhoods, people are looking for their civil rights. So let's remember to be tolerant. And let's remember Malcolm X.